Hello, everyone. Today we are going to chat with someone who's achieved a lot at a very, very young age. I came in touch with a young guest when I was invited to speak at LSR Delhi, and I've seen a remarkable progress over the last few years. She's a content creator on LinkedIn with over 43,000 followers. Her Insta reels are doing very well these days, as I see. She did brilliantly in her class 12 in her undergrad. She's doing very well at her work. She's a part of the Next Gen Women Leaders program by McKinsey. And it's incredible for someone who's her age in her early 20s to be doing so much. So today we will talk to Lubna. Lubna, thank you first of all for accepting this invitation. And we'll get to know her as a person, the highs she's at, the lows, and how you, if you want to aspire to be a young achiever like her, you can become like her. So first of all, thank you, Lubna, for agreeing to come on this recording.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So, Lubna, tell us a little bit about your background. So, the city you grew up in, your schooling, your family. Tell us, and we'll get started with that.
Right. I am from Srinagar, born in Srinagar, raised in Amritsar for 10 years, went to Ajmer, went to a boarding school when I was 10 years old, stayed there for 10 years, went to Delhi, and then was in Bangalore for a while, and now just city hopping, basically. Uh, as regarding my family, come from a business background and have and very connected to my roots, even though I've stayed in a lot of cities. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's very nice. You've traveled the length and breadth of India in your young life. So, tell me something in a country where everybody is obsessed with engineering or medicine. And you grew up in Amritsar, a slightly tier two city, born in Srinagar. How did you decide your mind to do economics and psychology? So, how did this decision happen? Did you face resistance at home?
On the contrary, my family was very supportive. They were like, do a subject that you actually enjoy. They were like, if you don't like science, right? I come from an ICSE, like in 10th standard, you have the ICSE exams. And in that, you have the three subjects, like you have exams for the three subjects. And I realized very early on that while I may be able to score in it, I'm not the best at it. And I don't want to do this going forward. And they were like, yeah, okay, great. Do whatever you want to. And I spoke to a couple of my seniors and I realized that I actually enjoy economics and I wanted to understand psychology. So I think going forward, these were the subjects I'd studied in 11th and 12th. So I was like, let's go forward with this.
That's very cool. So you touched upon boarding school. Let's talk about boarding school. You come from Mayo College, one of India's best schools, and uh, there's a certain perception or a certain stereotype about life in a boarding school: aggressive, hostile, a lot of bad habits, and tough people. A very difficult life. So children of rich people, spoiled brats. A lot of this stereotype may or may not be true, but this is a stereotype. So how much of this is true, first of all, and how was your experience in boarding school?
Some of it is true, and the minute you enter there, all of that washes away. Because when you realize that everybody comes from the same background and everybody is just as intelligent, right? Because you have to take an entrance exam. So you're like, you're on the same level playing field, right? And there is no barrier between the two of you. So it's like everything that you like that's been processed in your brain since you were little, all of that washes away. And I went there when I was 10 years old. So I had to leave my family, and I remember I was crying the first day they left me. First 2-3 hours, I was very happy that I'll be living on my own. And then after, at like 7 p.m. or something, I started crying and I was howling that, oh my God, how am I going to live without my parents? And people are not very nice to you initially because you have, you're very young, you are not built to be tough, right? And especially with girls, you tend to be more emotional. So I think it was the teachers there, and eventually you learn how to make friends and you learn how to, focus on the right things. And regarding the stereotypes, I think you learn to become independent. So you could say there's an innate quality of toughness there. And a lot of people do come from privilege there. Not all of them. Some parents do work hard like mine, to give them the best education. But some of them are brats and they learn it the hard way that this is not why you're here.
So, any interesting anecdotes or story from your boarding school which say uh, younger people might be curious to hear?
Actually, there was a politician's daughter, a couple of batches junior to me, and she's a very renowned politician's daughter, like you could say at like the national level. And, she wanted to show off. So she's like, and she'd had a fight with her dorm mates, I think around 18, 19 of them. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to gift you pizzas worth 1 crore within the next 1 hour. And she actually got the pizzas, and the cars had come outside the, school building. But there were so many cars, none of them could enter. And it was crazy.
Wow.
It was quite something.
I'm going to extract that and put it on Instagram. It'll go viral for sure. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk a bit of academics. Academics is excellent. I've seen you had for some of you who don't know, ICSE and ISC are very tough boards to score. I come from the same background, so I know she has a 98% in class 12, all India rank 8. Very, very difficult. During my time, I had a 92 and a 92, and people thought very highly of me. You've gone way, way beyond that. So, how did you go about class 12? Because you've always been a part of extracurriculars, debating, theatre, quiz. So, how did you manage your class 12 in terms of time, in terms of regime? How did you go about that?
So, class 12 actually, I would want to say that it went like a breeze, but it didn't, right? Because I had a lot of responsibilities in class 12, as the president of the English Society, as the president of the Debate Society, editor in chief of the magazine. And I was also the president of this thing called SUPW, Socially Useful Productive Work. So I had to focus on all that along with my academics. And, I've stayed friends with these people for 9 years. I've grown up with them. Also, the last year to enjoy with them. So it was a lot to take in initially. And I wouldn't say it was easy, but I think at the end of the day, what matters is where you go next, right? And
Yeah.
none of that can be determined just by the friends or by your extracurriculars alone. And I think you have to prioritize that for yourself. And I realized that since I'm not an IIT JEE aspirant, the next best thing is my marks, right? Like I have to score well. So the last 3 months, 4 months, I enjoyed life with my friends. I enjoyed school life. That emotional drama. But after that, I think I realized that I needed to focus on my acads also. And I gave it like my 100%. I really studied, even in the beginning of class 12 and class 11 also, a bit of syllabus was covered there. But the last 3-4 months, I really grind there just to study a lot.
Very nice. And given that you've studied so much and done so well, let me ask you this big question. There is this opinion on social media that the Indian education system is messed up. Grades don't matter in life, and its education is overhyped. As someone who's a success story of this system, what is your take on this thought process that grades don't matter and the education system is messed up?
I think when I say for both of us, right? You come from IIM Bangalore, I come from LSR. The reason why we got the next best opportunities in our life that other people might not have been able to get those, right, is because of the education that we got from the institutions that we came from, right? And people who say these things are honestly anomalies, right? Like it's a 1 in a 10,000 probability that you'll be able to make it big if you don't come from uh, legacy institutions or if you don't have good education. Yes, skills matter. That's like obviously. But coming from a good institution always gives you a heads up, right? And like even when you're walking down the lane and like if some relative asks you where you studied from or what course you studied, they instantly like recognize the name.
Yeah.
And it's like different. I think to make it big, you necessarily don't have to come from a big institution, but it gives you a heads up for sure.
No, I completely agree with that. It just increases your probability of succeeding. It's like it prevents you from the downside. It might not give you the upside, it prevents you from the downside, as we call. So no, that's very good. To everybody who's listening to this, never ignore your academics, because it will always ensure your rainy day is taken care of if you're good at education. It might not make you very successful, but it will ensure your rainy day is taken care of. So let's come to your LinkedIn journey. And you write very well, first of all. So you've been very active on LinkedIn. And the natural curious question is, because people of your generation tend to go Instagram first and probably YouTube. Why did you choose LinkedIn over these two?
So content creation didn't come as like, hey, I want to create content, right? It came, I think, beginning of the pandemic. I wanted an internship. First year was ending, and I was like, what's the best thing? If I don't want to ask people, right, for an internship, LinkedIn, right? So I came here, and I remember I had written a poem on mental health and how the challenges of the pandemic were being faced, and that had been published somewhere. So I just posted that here, and it got good traction. And I was like, okay, nothing to lose. Let's see what I post here, and like, let's see what the journey goes from here. And coming to Instagram and YouTube, right? Instagram, initially, it was like a lot of anxiety for me because everybody just tends to be like perfect there. They have like great hair, great skin, great like clothes, and the a lot of the focus is not on the quality there. It's just the way how you present yourself. And for LinkedIn, it was initially, when the algorithm had not done whatever it has done now, the focus was a lot on the words and the content that you wrote, right? So I think that resonated with me. And for YouTube, I mean, kudos to you, but it's very difficult for me to put myself out there like that. So it's a bit difficult for me.
Great, no, great. And whenever I interview people like you or any content creator, we have to get to this topic of trolls, especially women. I think have it far worse than men do in terms of trolls. So that's bigger in our country that we live in. So I'm sure you get trolls. I'm not even going to ask you that question. So give us examples of some worst trolls, hilarious trolls, and how do you typically handle them?
I think I have received trolls from like various domains and people I would have never met in my real life. Like somebody sent me a picture on LinkedIn with him standing next to Taj Mahal and like with a picture of a rose while he was standing next to Taj Mahal. And I didn't know what to say. Then this another person, he sent me a message saying, we won't reveal your identity anywhere, but are you interested in getting married? We only approach top B school and good colleges alumni. And I was like, no, this is not the reason why I joined LinkedIn. And it just goes like archive. Those messages are archived or like blocked. So I have like hilarious, instances like these on LinkedIn. So yeah, quite funny.
Have you, on a more serious one, have you been abused for any of the content, or have you received?
I have, I have. I think it was talking about. I think once I was talking about how uh, like one of the questions that we'd spoken about how being from a good institution gives you a heads up, right? But skills matter. And that's the post I'd written it about. And this was in the very early days. I think it was like my 10th, 11th post, and it kind of went viral. And someone had written that you don't get to speak this because you're from this background. Obviously, your institution is going to give you a heads up. And I kind of felt hurt by it because I was a 20-year-old at that time. And I was also like, how should I respond to this? And I had nobody to ask that time, right? Because I was so new to the whole social media game. And I was like, ठीक है, I'll just be, I don't want to be impolite. I just want to be respectful and I just want to say what I really meant, right? That skills will take you far ahead along with where you come from, right? That will just give you a heads up. And then I never heard back from the person again. So I think that was a job well done for me.
Do you like block people actively?
Um, I think I've learned how to not give into that noise anymore. Some people initially were very rude, very, just not the kind of people I would want to interact if I ever saw them in person. So I just kind of ignore that noise because the more I give into it, the more these people will,
Yeah.
again make like fake accounts and like reach out. So no.
Yeah. Uh, a lot of people will be curious to know how you manage your social media in terms of how do you allocate time? How do you identify new ideas? What are some of the tips and tricks? So someone say who's say your junior from LSA, 17, 18-year-old, and she wants to go on this journey, how can she get started?
Um, Honestly, when it comes to social media, right, like especially for LinkedIn, I don't have uh, a schedule planned per se. I usually write about my experiences, what I went through, and how it can help others, right? So I don't have a particular niche. And whatever comes to my mind, I just have like a WhatsApp group with myself where I send myself like voice notes, or like I open the notes app and I just write that, oh, this might be helpful and I want to talk about this. And whenever I get the time, I just post it. I was very consistent earlier, but I think now with time, I know that I have to prioritize other things. It's not that by LinkedIn, it's just that I have to give like allocate time to other things also. So I'm active here. I like to post occasionally I don't like to post when there's nothing value addition, like there's no value addition, right? Only when I'm able to give some value is when I like to post and when like some nice idea strikes me.
Great. So let's take you a few years forward. Let's go 3 4 years forward. So what is your long term plan? Is an MBA on the cards? Do you want to do
I
masters? How are you looking at your future?
I think education has and will always play a big part of my life, right? So I want to study further, given that I get in because it's very competitive.
Yeah.
But I think education masters is definitely on the cards sometime in the future. Fingers crossed.
And
But yeah.
how do you look at doing a masters in India versus say doing a masters in the US or masters in the UK? India versus India.
So I think if you do a master's in India, right, the ROI is really good in India, is what I've seen with my undergrad also, right? I think I paid what, like 30,000 for 3 years, and I got a job that gave me like, I don't know, like 1,000x return. So the kind of returns that you get on your education in India, it's very good, but it's very difficult to crack. The US and Europe, on the other hand, uh, a little bit easier to get in, but there's no probability that there'll be a campus placement, and you really need to know people there. Networking becomes a whole new skill there because if you want to like get a job there eventually, you need to like just not be good at academics.
Yeah.
You need to know people there. So
Yeah, absolutely. When I was discussing your profile with someone, the first thing somebody asked is, has this girl ever failed in life? She only seems to be winning in life. And what is your sense of struggle, or what is your major failure in life till now?
I have actually failed a lot. I,
Few
you know,
examples top of your mind.
back in January, I had a massive like health scare. That was me not prioritizing my health. Then I, you know, I wanted to go abroad for my undergrad. Had I not gotten in here, and there's a lot of time. There's like 6 months gap before you get into your undergrad abroad and you get into your undergrad in DU. So while I had gotten in, it was still like my heart was thumping those whole 6 months. Will I get in here? Will I get in here? So I think that was a major thing. And then again, during campus placements, right? MBB had come on campus. I skipped that, took a big risk on myself, went to Ladakh on a solo trip for 15 days, went to Vipassana. So yeah, I mean, I have taken like big bets on myself, and I don't know what the outcome of those would be at that time. But some of them played off well, some of them didn't. So it's all about how you take it.
That's
What's happened has happened.
bold, giving up the MBB, and that's a really bold one. That takes a lot of courage at your age. So, what I've often heard with, to a certain extent, my generation and definitely yours, you being a lady will have it much higher, is you always have these nasty relatives, nasty aunties who keep a tab on you, what you're doing. So, have you got irritated by some of these nasty relatives, nasty aunties, or have you always been the poster girl for them?
Fortunately, I was in boarding school, right?
You never faced it yourself.
I have. It's not that I have not. Whenever I used to come back home, and even now, right? What's the next big step? For me, it might be, studying like more. But for them, you know what the next thing on the cards is. I'm not going to mention it explicitly, but you know what it is.
Yeah.
So they're like, "Haan, bas padna band karo," you know?
Yeah. No, I get that. And the one thing anybody will want to know, so someone who's 16, 17 listening to this episode, what advice would you have for someone like that? Say someone who comes from not the big metro, say someone who's come from an Amritsar, tier 2 city with big dreams like you, 16, 17-year-old, facing all that troubled aunties around them, but having big dreams like you. What advice would you have for a 16-year-old girl coming from Amritsar or Patiala?
I think just to never give up on yourself, right? Even when the whole world believes that you can't do it, just hold on to yourself and be like, yeah, you got this. And when you've looked at what you can do in the past and you've done it, so I think it's just like a trajectory. Always look at your trajectory. And then you're like, if I've done this, why can't I do this?
Great advice. So we'll end this with a quick rapid fire. So you know how rapid fires work. Say the first thing that comes to your mind. You've stayed in so many cities in India. Your best city to live in?
Srinagar.
One thing you like about Srinagar?
The gardens.
Obviously. And what do you not like about Srinagar?
The traffic.
In Srinagar?
Yeah.
How long have you stayed in Bangalore?
Bangalore. Bangalore traffic is like way worse.
Yes.
But Srinagar traffic is also something now.
Wow. Very, very interesting. Who's your role model in life? Who do you look up to?
I think my dad.
Very cool. And what's the role of your dad in your life? I'm assuming he's been very supportive all through, but
right.
How is your relationship with your dad? How often do you talk? Is he like a friend? Is he like a big brother? Is he like a mentor? How is your relationship with your dad?
I think he's been like everything, right? Like my go-to. I'm feeling down, I'll call him up. And like, even though if he's not having a good day, he'll be like, you know what? Talk to me for half an hour. I'm going to tell you that this is like not the end of the world. And especially coming from a family like mine, right? A business background, and where girls are not formally like educated as much. I think he was the first person whose daughter went to a boarding school to study, and he took that risk. But he was like, I want my daughter to be educated so that she can be like independent, right? And I think it's very important to have supportive parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, a lot of your success in life, the credit goes to them, because
of course,
the big success definitely goes to your favorite influencer.
My favorite influencer, you're probably one of them.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay. One influencer you hate?
One influencer I hate. I don't want to take names. I will text you later.
Well, what sort of things do they do which you don't like? Forget the name.
I think when people haven't been on that journey, right, and they talk about it, it is really disrespectful to someone who's been through that, and they talk about it like somebody from my age, right? And they talk about how to like be a C-suite executive and how to grab that. And I'm like, you have just entered the workforce. Who are you to say that? It's really funny.
I heard someone had once said, avoid taking a course from a 19-year-old on how to manage the career in your 50s. I remember this from my exactly. Yes. So, what do you want to do next in the next 2 to 3 years?
I have a couple of things lined up. Firstly, I want to study further, and there are some good opportunities coming on the way. And let's see what has. I'll probably like. There's a lot in like future, a lot of big plans, but they'll come eventually with time.
Very, very good to hear. And I'm pretty sure an Ivy League is around the corner for someone like you. So if we do this discussion 3, 5 years later, maybe you'll be doing it from a Stanford campus. But that's where pretty much someone like you should go to. Any last piece of advice you want to give your audience or people who follow both of us?
I think just to like follow your heart. That's like the only thing, right? And just believe in what you do, even if people don't believe in you.
Believe in what you do, even when people do not believe in you. So that's great. With this, we come to the end of this episode. Thank you, Lubna. It was a great conversation, and you're doing really, really well in life, and I'm sure you will keep doing very well in life. And with this, we come to the end of the episode. If you want to keep hearing such fascinating conversations, do subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take care.